So I'm back for another Cerebral solo. I know it's been a little bit since I did one of these, but for this one I wanted to kind of tell a story, and this story is gonna be really interesting because it's something that I've been dealing with for a long time, and I finally got through, and I wanted to tell the story now that everything is done and I've gotten past it. So the story pretty much starts back when I was 19. I had just finished technical school. I graduated second in my class in technical school, and the year before I graduated as a valedictorian of my high school class. I graduated in 22 but in 2012, by the way. So I'm dating myself a little bit. Yeah, but yeah, so I graduated high school valedictorian, and I went to technical school. Right, I went to technical school right afterwards. I was getting my school paid for by vocational rehab. If you have a disability or something like that, you know what vocational rehab is. But so I ended up getting my school paid for by vocational rehab. I ended up graduating from the technical college I went to, and it wasn't until and once I graduated, they let me know that I could get my credits from they're transferred over to the community college, so that way I wouldn't have to be in school as long, because all the credits that I earned from that specific course would be considered college credits. So I wouldn't have to be in school as long, and I could get my bachelor's faster. So I decided to go that route, and I decided to do the enrollment. And the enrollment took me a little bit. I had to, constantly go back and forth, and do all the processes. And I remember the day before the it was the day before the last day of enrolling, and they told me that they needed my high school transcripts. So I ended up getting the number to my high school. Ended up getting my high school. I'm calling them, asking for my transcripts. Getting my transcripts. Going back on the last day of enrollment for the fall semester of 2014, for the fall semester of 2014, or going into 2014, because I graduated technical school in 2013. So then the following year would have been the 2013-2014 school semester. Just to get my timelines right. And it was the last day. So I bring my high school transcripts to the office upstairs, and while they're trying to put in the transcripts, they let me know that they can't put in the transcripts, that I would have to go to the admissions office downstairs. And I was like, okay, that's weird, but okay. So I ended up going to the admissions office downstairs. And then as they were trying to put in transcripts, they kept asking me all these questions like, did you actually do work at this school? Did you graduate at this school? And I'm like, yeah. I'm letting them know, I got valedictorian. I graduated top of my class. I graduated with a 3.69 and all these different things. And they're asking me if I did work here. And I was like, yeah, why wouldn't I do work at a school? But, but anyway, so as the process is going on, they asked me for the number to my school, which thankfully I still had. So I ended up giving them the number to the school. The admissions person, talked to my principal, And this one specific sentence I heard, and I heard one specific sentence that kind of made me nervous, and it was, okay, I'll tell him. And after I heard those words, it it became really difficult because the next thing that she told me was, unfortunately, the school you went to wasn't accredited, and because of that, in order for you to attend the college, you would need to get your GED. And when I heard that, it felt like a plane, a truck, Superman, any strong thing in the universe that can possibly almost kill you or come to kill you. It felt like it just hit me straight in the chest, and I was really deflated, just shocked and upset. I was a bunch of feelings all at once, and it was really, really, really difficult. And as soon as that happened, I was walking out of the building. I called my mom, let her know what happened. And I called my dad, and my dad was, at first he was immediately excited because he thought I got enrolled and everything. But then when I told him what happened, it went from excitement to shock to complete anger. I still didn't know how to feel. I called him, my voice was shaking. I was upset. I was sad. I didn't know what to do. I was just all over the place. And then my mom came to pick me, and then my mom came to pick me up. I was letting her know what was happening. And then as I was letting her know, my feelings immediately shifted to anger towards her, because she was the one that put me in the private school. So immediately, all the feelings that I was feeling, it needed to be directed at something, and I just automatically directed it toward her, and immediately started blaming her, and doing all this other stuff. And then we were getting into arguments, and then my dad was talking to her, and then they were getting into an argument back and forth. And then my dad wanted to talk to the principal of my school, so I gave him the number, and then him and my stepmom called, and then they were yelling at the principal, saying like, how could you do this, and this, that, and the third. And then their excuse for it, and then the school's whole thing was they were trying to get the accreditation process done, but they never got around to doing it or finishing, and their stuff came up or some sort of excuse. And it was a lot of those. That day felt like the life I wanted had been stolen from me, in a sense. And it was really difficult to get. It was really difficult to get through. But once I was, once I decided, you know what, I'm just once I calmed down a little bit, and they talked to me, they were like, just go ahead and get the GED, and then you can go to school. I mean, it's not the end of the world because you just finished school, so a lot of this stuff is fresh. So just go ahead and get it done as quick as possible, and then we'll go from there. But so I did that whole process, and the first test I took the language arts test, which in school has always been my favorite subject. English and language arts has always been my favorite subject because I enjoy reading, and I enjoy reading, and I enjoy reading comprehension, all that sort of stuff. So I didn't really need to study much for that one, and I ended up passing it on the first try. And in my mind, I'm like, wow, this is if this was pretty easy, the rest of the test is gonna be a breeze because I just finished school. Everything's still kind of fresh, so I kind of knew what to look for. But then here comes the part of the story where things get a little bit wonky. I ended up, as my second test, wanting to take the math test. So I knew math wasn't my best subject, so I would have to study a little more. So I studied for about a good 2-3 weeks to a month. 2-3 weeks to a month, studied for that, took the test. First time I took the test, I failed. And back when and back during that time, the passing score for your to get your GED for each test was you needed to get a 150 on every single one of the tests in order to pass. For the language arts, I got a 161, which gave me a 163 actually. And it gave me college ready credits for that. So so if I ever so when I would go to school, so basically when I would finish and I would go to school, I would have a college credit for that class. So I wouldn't have to take that class in college. So, and then after I failed the math test, I'm like, damn, this sucks. But I'll get it next time. Take it the second time. I get a 149. I'm 1 point off from passing. The test. But the second time I passed, I'm like, okay, I failed, but I don't know what questions I'm getting. And at this point, I'm starting to question. I'm like, what do I need to be studying? Because I don't know what questions I'm getting wrong. That's one thing about me like in terms of learning. I like to know what I'm getting wrong so I know what to work on. If I don't know what to work on, I feel like I'm just like a deer in the headlights because I don't like not knowing what I'm getting wrong. If I'm getting something wrong, let me know what I'm getting wrong so I can work on it. So that was the second time. I studied again, and for the third test, I ended up taking a And then the third time, and at this point, I'm studying on my own. I'm not using like a GED ready class or anything like that. I'm studying on my own. I'm using the internet. Studying math or whatever. So I end up taking the test a third time, and I end up failing again. And at that point, it was really, really frustrating because not only did I fail the test 3 times, my mom was helping me pay for all the tests, and it's $38 test. It's $38 to take each test. So I'm not only am I frustrated that I'm failing the test, my mom's getting frustrated because she's the one having to pay for all this, and then she's getting mad at me because I keep failing, and then I'm getting frustrated with her because she doesn't really understand, because she's not understanding that I'm trying as hard as I can, at least from my perspective. I'm not sure how she feels because I haven't. This is something that we haven't. I haven't talked about with her really, which I think I should, but 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 that's beside the point. But she's getting really frustrated because she's paying me for me to take this test and I keep failing. But I'm also getting frustrated because I feel like I'm studying as hard as I can and I just can't get it. So so after the third time failing the test, I just decided it was so deflating that I just decided to give up. And for 11 to 12 years, it's just been something that's been sitting there, and it's been, and one thing that I didn't realize was that because I gave up on it, it affected me it affected me in other ways. And like I was saying, because I gave up on it and because of all the stuff that happened with the school and everything, it sent me into a depressive state for about 2 years where I was in a funk. I didn't wanna leave the house. I didn't wanna, get a job. I didn't wanna do any of these sort of things. But it wasn't until I met my mentor on one random Thursday, and that's a whole nother story that I can get into on another. So that he kind of helped me through that fog, but through the depressive fog. But even with him, getting me through the depressive fog and everything, I still had GED in the closet that I didn't want to deal with, and because I wasn't dealing with it or any of the things that happened to me with the whole school situation, it was affecting how I I chose to approach certain things. And when I say that, I mean it's and when I say that, I'm kind of talking about how there would be times where I would start something, but then I would be scared to, put my all into it because I felt like if I tried my hardest and failed, it would have been all for nothing. It would have been all for nothing, just like the school thing. So for a lot of things, I would start. I would never fully commit, and then eventually stop. This didn't happen for a lot of things, and this didn't happen for a lot of things, but for like a few select things it did. And one of the big things that I'm glad it didn't affect was my fitness journey. Once I decided to lock in on my fitness journey, that's something I've been really consistent with and really working towards, and getting better with, if you as you guys have seen. But what it did affect is my willingness to be fully committed to, you know with my mentor in terms of business, because my mentor has been, trying to guide me in business as far as helping people with finances and stuff like that. And I'm scared, and I was scared to fully com- fully commit, because I felt like if I tried hard and I failed, it would just, be proving the doubts that I had in my head, right? About how, like, it's not, like, I don't know why I'm trying if I'm just gonna end up, being as disappointed. Because I didn't want to feel the disappointment and the anger and the sadness that I felt that day, I didn't and still haven't really committed to, wanting to be the person I know I can be, which is really successful, and work on my potential and stuff like that. So, but yeah, that's one of the things that I was dealing with, am still kind of dealing with now. I mean, I'm getting through it now, thankfully, due to these videos and stuff. But I say all that to say, it wasn't until about 2-3 months ago where I was at work, and one of my coworkers, who's in high school, he's getting ready to graduate. He just got accepted in to UF, and and that's a really that's really really great, and congratulations to him. But it wasn't until I got to talking about him, and we got to talking about school, and I told him the story, that I started thinking to myself, you know what? Maybe it's time to just say screw it, get back in, and get the monkey off my back. And I'm happy to say that the monkey is off my back, and I ended up passing the last two tests that I needed to pass, and I officially got my GED, and that's something that I'm really 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 proud of, because it's something that I didn't think that I would ever go back to, because I didn't want to deal with all the emotional baggage that I thought it would have came with. And and thankfully also, I forgot to mention, um during my depressive stage, I um it actually what actually happened was that made it so I only needed to take two tests was they ended up lowering the passing requirement for the GED from a 150 to a 145. So they took my highest math score that I got, which is a 149, and because they lowered the score, that became my passing score. So I ended up passing the math regardless. But like I said, I was in a depressive state, and even though I found that out, I still didn't want to go through with it. But for the past 2.5, 3 months, I when I finally decided to, lock in and decided to finish the test, I ended up passing my social studies. I passed with a 161. I passed with a 161. I was 2 points off from getting a college ready credit. That still kind of annoys me a little bit, because I could have had um two two um two tests with a college ready credit, and I ended up passing the science social studies, the science GED, which I thought was gonna be a little bit of a struggle for me. I and it because there's math involved in science and stuff like that. But to be honest, it was, and then passed it, and then I ended up passing that just the other day, and I officially have my GED, and it's really really, and again, like I've been saying, it's felt like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders, and it kind of reminds me that I can do what I set my mind to, if I really decide to lock in and do it, and to have that lingering little that lingering darkness in the back of my mind, in my life, just kind of gone. It's kind of freeing, and it it goes to show that whatever we decide to work on and decide to really really excuse me, whatever we decide to really really invest our time in, if we really really work at it, we can achieve it. And I know, and that's something that I always talk about too, is even though in times may seem difficult, if you really really want it, and you really really want it, just put your head down and work towards it. And that's something I always talk about. But when it came to the GED, I wasn't following I wasn't following what I was preaching. So for me to have this done, and to get the monkey off my back, it kind of just, it's like, yes, I got it done. It's okay to it's okay to dive in and work as hard as you can, because it's okay to dive in and work as hard as you can, because even if you might not hit the high expectations you have, as long as you're making progress and going towards the goal, then you can do whatever you set your mind to. So yeah, that's what I yeah, so that's this Cerebral Solo. This is and the story of how I got my GED and how I passed. And I hope you guys I hope you anyone who watches this who may be going through the same things, or maybe is going through a time where they think they can't achieve what they want to achieve, just look to me as an example, and just know that regardless of how long it takes, you can eventually you can get it done. And yeah, I'm still really excited about having all this done. But yeah, that's gonna be it for this video. I'll catch you guys on the next one.